Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Little Big Knits, podcast about knitting, as the name of the podcast says. And my name is Selma. I'm your host. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Selma Knits. And I am coming to you from a beautifully sunny Ottawa, Canada, where I live. And hello, and welcome to this episode. Couple of words. First, on your comments from last time, many of you noticed in the footage of Yoda, our cat, that she, by the way, Yoda's a she just ended up with that name because that's apparently who she looked like when she was born. She looked like Yoda, and we just kept the name. But some of you noticed that she has this like perfect star on her chest, and to be honest, we had never noticed that, but it was very evident in the video. But I think when you're seeing her in movement, you don't always see the star. So that was kind of neat, and I'm glad that you enjoyed that footage if you stayed to the end. And I have announced the winners for the Scrappy Stashy Mal that ended at the end of December. I have put the information in our Little Big Knits Ravelry group, as well as contacted the people on Instagram directly. So if you want to check out the Ravelry group and see who won, you're welcome to, and to see what the prizes were. So there you go. That is over and done with. And we have the LBK Nordic Cal, which is going on until the end of March. So you still, if you are knitting with Nordic patterns or Nordic yarn, you're welcome to join in still. Whips are welcome as well. And then one last little bit is that Knitting New Mexico, I mentioned to you last time, this is the retreat that I taught at last year. I will be attending this year as a co-host. It starts on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend and goes until Wednesday. It's at Ghost Ranch again. And the website has not yet been updated, but will be soon. And I'll be announcing something on Instagram as well as on my YouTube when that's the case. And if you feel like joining us, but hopefully Lauren will soon have the information up on the website so you can see the details of the retreat. So yeah, and I think we're ready to go. Let's talk about, there are actually two obvious FOs here right now, but let's start with this one. So this is the Rivendell pullover by Sari Nordland. Sari is a Finnish designer, so this would be acceptable for the LBK Nordic Cal. And this is normally a sweater, but as you can see, I left off the sleeves. And I'm really glad I did, because I actually only have maybe a little bit less than half of the fourth skein of this yarn. So there certainly would not have been enough. This, with the cables, this actually took up way more yarn than a regular vest would. There's more fabric to it. It's got more ease to it. And yeah, so let me first talk about the yarn, because then we're going to talk about the design and the styling of it a little bit. So this yarn is a discontinued yarn. It was reclaimed yarn from a failed project, another vest that I made a couple of years ago that was just a holy disaster. And this is the Ba Ram Yu Winterburn DK, a beautiful yarn. Oh dear, it was a combination of BFL and something else. I'll have to put it down here. Glorious, glorious yarn to work with. Absolutely beautiful. It's unfortunate that it is discontinued, because I would be heading off to get some more. This is the colorway Wesley Bob. And yeah, it was just a really, really lovely yarn to work with. So this design is a really, really interesting design. Interesting construction. It starts at the back and then you pick up for the front, and it's just got really neat shaping and construction. And once you pick up for the front, you are creating the V shape as well as this cable and sort of, what do you call this type of thing? Kind of like a fisherman's rib type of detail on the side. And then you are continuing the shaping of this to the bottom here. So just a beautiful, beautiful detail. The sleeves normally would have the cable detail and fisherman's rib going down here, but as you can see, I just added a little bit of ribbing. It called for a twisted rib. The neckline in the pattern could be either an I-cord edge or a 1x1 twisted rib, and I decided to go with that because the neck hole was quite large and I wanted it to cinch in a tiny little bit. And so I used the same type of ribbing here and the same type of ribbing here. As you can see, it's got a little bit of a, it comes in a little bit, and I feel like it creates a little bit of a retro look. I don't know, what decade is that? The 80s, the 70s, the 90s? I don't quite know, but it feels kind of retro. And I am wearing it with wide leg jeans and this white shirt. So yeah, it was a pleasure to knit, totally engaging, lovely design. It's one where you definitely want to read the instructions. I think the one criticism I would have is that I found that there's paragraphs, and sometimes I think it would have needed a heading. So you should probably read through and kind of mark for yourself if you make this. That's my takeaway from this pattern. Would I make this again? I totally would. It's such an interesting piece that I don't know that I really need a second one in my life right now, but I really, really like it. Modifications, except for this obvious one of not putting any sleeves on, I did one less cable detail here, and so I shortened the V-neck just a tad because I felt like it was already getting to be a little bit big for a V-neck. And you know what? I have to be honest, I didn't check my row gauge. Did I check my row gauge? I don't remember. But I just kind of went with it, and yeah. And I really like the length of it. So I'm going to show you some footage here of me wearing it with different things because I did find it a little bit difficult to style this. I think the conclusion of this is that it needs something simple underneath. And I tried it on with this black sort of dark gray blouse with polka dots that sort of see-through. You've seen it before with other tops that I've made or sweaters that I've made, but it just didn't look good. It looks good with the charcoal gray top with that's got slender arms on it. And it looks good on its own actually. And it actually doesn't look too bad with the flower shirt. So I will have been showing these along here on the side. I definitely think this is a vest where I don't want my shirt hanging out from the bottom because the shaping of the sweater is such that it would just kind of be messy looking. But I actually really, really like it. I really like it with the jeans. I think it would look great with black pants, with a black skirt, especially sort of like a pencil skirt. It could look nice with a jean skirt that was a pencil skirt as well. So I think there are some interesting options for this. Actually, I have some cream pants I thought could look interesting with cream pants as well. So I have a feeling that I'm going to enjoy wearing this as, this is not a neutral. It's a neutral in some ways, but it's also a little bit of a statement piece. I just really like it. I'm really, really pleased with it. While I was knitting it, I was thinking, I hope I get the length right on this thing. I hope that the shaping works. And I think it does. It's just a different kind of piece, and I really, really like it. So that is the Rivendell. Hope I've said everything I wanted to say about it. I think so. Yeah. I do think I made the ribbing on the bottom a little longer too. I made it kind of probably about close to 3 inches, maybe 2.5 inches. So probably about 6 or 7 centimeters. 6 centimeters, something like that. Yeah, so there you go. My first FO, happy FO. I'm glad to have finally used this red yarn in something that I will actually enjoy wearing. So this will probably be something that I'll wear next Christmas as well. But I think it's the kind of red that doesn't yell Christmas. I think this could be worn at any time, to be honest. So yeah, really lovely. All right, let's talk about that guy there, the gnome in the room. His name is Nathan, spelt with a G. And you will recall, if you've been here for a while, that I started him in December and I got a little bit stuck. I got stuck with his bottom because I really was struggling to figure out what to put underneath. And if you can hear, there are rocks in there. I actually realized that we had this little bowl of rocks downstairs, and we seem to have a collections of seashells and rocks and things around this house. So I decided to put them into a stocking, like a knee-high stocking, and I just cut it off and knotted the end of it, put them in there and put them at the bottom. Now, I do think I could have put more of them. I realize now I was a little bit conservative. I probably could have had a little bit more weight in there, but he does stand quite happily, actually. So he's filled with yarn worms, as Yana of the Finnish Knitting Stories calls them, little bits and bobs of yarn that I've been collecting, and he really didn't use up very many. So I think I need to make a few more gnomes to empty my little pot that has all my yarn bits in it. And so the stones worked. Thank you to all of you for all the great suggestions. There were so many interesting suggestions of putting sand, beans, stones, washers, all kinds of different things. I think the one thing for me will be probably to put a little bit more next time, but it is working well, and he worked out great. This pattern is by Imagined Landscapes. She's actually a Canadian designer. I didn't realize that. And she's known for her gnomes. And this guy is called Nathan, but the pattern is Not Just Another Gnome, I believe it's called. And he's got lovely cable details on his hat and down his body, and then this little seed stitch detail. So he's quite a fancy gnome. And then there's just a slip stitch detail on here, and he's got this little funny nose and the arms. And he's really great. Would I make this again? I think I would. I did find all these little bits a little fiddly, but because I had never made anything like this before, there was a lot of mental energy spent on the bottom, for example, of what to put in there. Now that I've gotten over that, I think I would make another one quite happily. It's constructed really neatly because you start with the hat and then you build the body from that. And then you add the little bits. And it's a great way to use up little bits of yarn, actually, and a lovely decoration. I am thinking that I want a few more, at least 2 more in different colors. I'm trying to figure out if I want to make the same guy 2 more times or make different guys. And they can have, their little place at Christmas time to hang out together and decorate the room. But he was a success, and he's great, and he's going to hang out with us today. Don't fall over. All right, next finished object. I have 2 more for you. One was part of my February challenge of finishing an old work in progress, and here we have it. This is this pillow that I created out of old yarns, well, mostly old yarns. So there was this Patons Croy. In here we've got some Patons Croy. The black is a Jameson fingering that I bought for this because I didn't have any black yarn. And then the gray was some sock yarn that I'd gotten from the Belfast Mini Mill, Woolen Mill? Belfast Mini Mill in Prince Edward Island many, many moons ago when we went there for a trip, and it never became anything. So I held the yarns triple throughout, knit on 5mm needles in the round. So this is garter stitch. So this meant that every second row I was doing purling, and it was not the most pleasant knit. I really love the final outcome. It turned out that I miscalculated a bit, and this was where I started. And then I did this piece, and I didn't need as many rows up here to finish it. So it's not totally symmetrical, but I don't care. If I were to make this again, I think I would make it in 2 pieces and stitch it up in a fun way. because knitting it in the round was really not fun, but I do like the effect of the marling with the garter stitch. So yeah. What else to say about this? I did sort of 3 stitches on the side just to create a little bit of a side, but if I were to make it in separate pieces, then that would just be taken up by the stitching. That would be putting them together. And I made it large enough to fit an one of the IKEA pillows, and it suits our basement because we've got black, orange, and gray. So this was a great success. It used up a lot of yarn. I would say the 3 strands together used up a good 1,800 yards of yarn. So it used up a lot of yarn. And I thought, you know, if you did it, you can do it for any shape of pillow, any size, and it's just a great way to use up bits and bobs, and it's very squishy and lovely. It's soft and really, really quite a lovely final product. I had thought about doing something like tassels all over it, or some sort of embroidery or tassels up here. And in the end, I was like, you know what? It's for our basement TV room sofa. I'm just going to let it be. I also didn't want things that might create texture and make it not so nice to sit against. So I thought, I'm just going to leave it as is. I have a little bit of yarn left over. I might make a little, what do you call it? A little coaster type of thing with the rest of the yarn. So finished object number 3, really, really happy. I had told you last time that one of my February challenges was to read, and the other was to finish some old works. So really happy to have gotten this. I decided to finish him next because I knew that I needed to get over my mental hump with him and just finish it. And so for the remainder of February, I'm going to be working on the Gnome socks that I also started in December, because I feel like those need a little bit of attention every day to get through. And I want to finish at least the color work on the 2 socks, and then I'll be able to show you that next time. So yeah, so that is work in progress number 3. Sorry, that was finished object number 3. Finished object number 4 is this beautiful hat. This is the Giselle hat, designed by Cami Jo Knits, also known as Camilla Hoyer Adamson. And she is the yarn dyer behind Cami Jo Yarns, and she also designs. And this is just such a fabulous design. It's a bit like the Musselburgh, where you start here, you knit, and you continue. And you start the inside with a DK yarn, and this is some beautiful Felicipunto alpaca DK that I got at Barcelona Knits. And it's an absolutely luxurious yarn, beautiful, and really nice to wear against the head, I must say, against the skin. And then this is Lang Yarns, their Mohair Luxe Lame. It's got a little bit of sparkle, but there was a little glimmer. Just a beautiful sort of mohair silk combination with a little bit of glitter going through it. So you start here and you go on to that. And what is really neat about this is that it actually folds in on itself just very, very naturally. And just sits really, really naturally. Now, I think the one thing, I am going to be making a second one for a friend of mine. I think that if I were to make this, when I make it again, I think I'll make the inside a tad shorter, because I find that it does bunch up here. And that might be me. I might have made one not quite the right length, but I do feel that probably having the inside just a tiny, tiny bit, like a 1/4 of an inch or a centimeter shorter, probably would have been better. So here it is. I absolutely love it. I've been wearing it most days. We've had some cold weather, and it's been a lovely, lovely hat to wear. It is light and marshmallow-like. It literally sits on your head and feels like marshmallow. There's something kind of a little retro about this as well, I find. I feel like it looks a bit like a pillbox hat. It's just really lovely. I could see myself making more of these. Right now, this fits my coat perfectly. I have this dickie that I made last year, and this and my coat is a similar color. And my friend was like, "You're very coordinated." I'm like, "I know, first time in my life." But it just really, really nice. And I think it would be nice if I made a white scarf as well. Maybe I need to make a white scarf. This is a good idea. So yeah, lovely pattern, really lovely outcome. It sits really nicely. There's, as I said, there's this marshmallowness to it. It just sits and it stays. And it's got a lovely, lovely shape. So really, really a pleasure to have made this hat. It was a pleasure to knit. This was based on Camilla's Giselle shawl, which has one side of garter and one side of lace. And I love this very simple lace. It just works out really great. Lovely hat. Not my last. I love the concept, and it just makes a very nice light hat. So there you go. Finished object number 4. It's been a busy time, but lots of things were sort of far on and small and didn't necessarily, this was almost finished, this pillow, and he was almost finished. So I was able to accomplish a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to come and share all these beautiful things with you. So there you go. Yeah, this was so beautiful. Enough said. So those are my finished objects today. And before moving on to works in progress, I had a question. I had a question from a viewer about the ranunculus. You'll recall that I made this sort of more vest-like version last time. And I did not do the short row shaping in the front. As you can see, the back has this shaping, but the front goes right into the stitch pattern. I have my first ranunculus here with me to show you. And as you can see, there is short row shaping on the back and a little bit of short row shaping on the front, not as much as on the back. And she said, what is the difference? And there really is a difference. I noticed, and I have to be honest, I think I prefer it with the short row shaping. I don't think I would do it without the short row shaping again, because what I like about the ranunculus is how it fits here, and it's so flattering. Now, not everybody likes a boat neck like type of fit. So, omitting the short rows is a total possibility. Once you've done the back short rows, you just move right into the rest of it. It just scoops down a little bit more, and it's lovely, but I think that for a future ranunculus, and I'm open to future ranunculuses, I wouldn't omit the short rows, but that's just my personal preference. I don't think there's any problem with doing that, and it does look lovely. I just think that my personal preference is to keep the short rows, but the short rows raise the neckline. So without the short rows, it's just a little bit more of a scoop neck. And with the short rows, it just raises it a little bit, and you can see it. So here it is without the short rows, and here it is with the short rows. All right, let's move on to works in progress. I've really only got 2 works in progress. This was a weird week. When this was coming to an end, usually when I'm getting close to the end of a sweater, I'm already planning my next sweater. And usually the answer is clear what I want to make next. This time it was not. And I have had a frenzy of activity total frenzy of activity, just trying to figure out, what do I want to make? What do I want to make? I could not decide for the life of me. I ended up taking a bunch of yarn out of the yarn closet, putting it on a bed in the house, and just kind of going, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? So I'm going to show you a little bit later what will be coming up. But it really wasn't an easy choice. I knew I wanted to cast on the blue Stockholm sweater. I showed you the blue yarn last time, but it wasn't obvious that that was the first thing that I was going to cast on. So anyway, it's been a weird time. But in the meantime, I have a couple of works in progress. I showed you the socks last time in this bag, and a bag from my Etsy shop from years gone by. And I am making a pair of socks out of this opal yarn. This is color 4000, Prinzessin Tausendschön. And I have no idea. I would say that it means 1,000 beautiful princesses. I don't know. All right. This is the colorway, and I finished a sock. I have decided this year that I'm going to be making socks for my colleagues. There are 4 people on my team, and I'm going to make socks for them. And so this is for one of my colleagues. And I finished the first one, and I'm well on the way for the second one. I'm on the decrease on the gusset onto the foot. So I do hope that this will be finished in the next week. And sort of a ordinary vanilla sock, cuff down, 60 stitches, slip stitch heel flap. Nothing very exciting about it, but just a really great project. I really love the fact that it is just an easy project. So if I have to go to a doctor's office or I have time at lunchtime at work, this is always with me. And so it gets done because I just work on it here and there. The other work in progress is in this lovely bag that my friend Liliane gave me when I was in Madrid. It's from Madrid Knits, and she had given me some yarn and some little needle stoppers in it. Sorry, I'm just gonna have a little sip of tea. And this lovely mug that my friend Lauren gave me, and it matches the colors, so I had to choose it. And just so you know, I'm drinking just some plain rooibos tea in there today. All right, so in here, I showed you last time, I had gotten this stunning yarn from Illimani. It's the Illimani Feli. And this is almost what's left. There's just a teeny weeny bit left to do on the project. This is a stunning yarn. Wow, this is beautiful. It is a 70% ultra fine merino and 30% cashmere. So quite a luxury yarn. And I am making fingerless gloves or fingerless mitts. I always think, I guess the gloves should have fingers, and these are mitts and they don't have fingers. I'm making the Duke City Mitts by Dagmar of Paper Dag. And I cannot remember her last name, but I'll put it down here with the project name. It's a free pattern, and it's sort of one of these patterns where, you know, you choose your yarn. It's a great scrap buster or stash buster. And it's just really easy. You could make this as long as you want. I was concerned that I would run out of yarn, which I did not. I think I've used 2/3 of the yarn about. And you just knit on, and I'm just at the point where I have finished the hand, and I just need to do the few rows for the thumb. So I kind of didn't have quite the energy to finish that up yesterday, and I've just got them on, those stitches on hold, and they'll be finished today, and I'll be giving these to my neighbor. So I'm not sure if I am able to finish them before I finish editing the podcast. I might put a picture in here. If not, just know that they've gone to my neighbor. I'm gonna have to redo the edge of this mitten because it's a little bit loose. This one is somehow better. So I'm gonna redo. I did them a little differently, and this one's definitely better. So I have to figure out what I did here because I like this one more. So yeah, just super simple project, came along really quickly, lovely, easy pattern, lots of different options in the pattern, and this yarn is just dreamy. Wow. I'll be very curious to see how it wears. So I'm gonna have to ask my neighbor to make sure that she tells me. So that's my work in progress number 2, almost finished. And in this bag, I haven't actually started the hat yet, but the friend that I made the wisp for, and I'll put the picture of the wisp that I finished, was it last episode or the episode before that? I made this in this beautiful Rowan Kid Silk Haze in this brown. So there is most of a last ball of that mohair left, and she's going to be needing a hat to go with it. She happened to have this alpaca I wound yesterday. So we're gonna have this beige underneath with the brown on top. She has very different coloring, and this will just look really, really nice on her. So I'll be double stranding this almost lace weight, I would say lace weight alpaca that comes from an Ontario farm. It's from Silent Valley Alpaca. Now, somebody had given my friend this yarn. She doesn't actually knit, but she does a lot of visible mending and stuff. So I think they thought that perhaps she would use it for some sort of a project. It's gorgeous alpaca, 500 yards for 100 grams. So yeah, definitely sort of a very light fingering, bordering on lace. So I'm going to double strand this for the hat. I'm hoping that it meets gauge. So as soon as I have finished the fingerless gloves, which are on 3.5 millimeter needles, those needles will be coming to start the hat. So hopefully that'll happen today. And I'll be making a second Giselle hat for my friend. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that looks like. I think it's going to be lovely. So in this beautiful bag that my friend Annina made, Annina of Anni Juuti Knits, is the very beginnings of my Stockholm vest or Stockholm Slipover. And you start with the back. So this is the back, and I had to start again. I started with one size, and I wanted to, because I've already made this pattern twice, I wanted to be very sure that it was no bigger than the other 2 that I've made. And so I had cast on, went and measured, and I was like, oops, this is going to be a little bit big. So I ripped back and have started with less stitches. So not a whole lot to say about this. I am using 2 yarns. So I'm using, it's looking a little messy, but I've got 2 balls of this, which is the stunning yarn from Juniper Moon. It is the Finley base, and it's an extra fine merino and mulberry silk blend. This is a lace weight. There are 800 yards essentially in each one of these. And I am putting this together with this mohair, which is the Katia Concept 50 Shades of Mohair. And this is number 31. And I can't show you a whole lot of, the texture that it's creating. The mohair is very subtle. This is a very, very fine mohair. It's not as present as other mohairs. I can't say I love it. It's not a fabulous mohair, but it's okay. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's wound on these, on cardboard, and it's a little difficult to find the beginning. So it got a little matted, and that was slightly irritating to try and deal with. But it's a lovely color, and with this, it sort of is creating the blue that I had in mind. And it's just going to be a lovely, lovely blue vest. So nothing much to say. I'm knitting it on 4 millimeter needles. My gauge was different than in the pattern, and I've just sized accordingly. My gauge is a little bit tighter than in the pattern. And yeah, I've just chosen a size accordingly. So that got cast on last night and ripped back and cast on again. So the other 2 sweaters the other 2 yarns, I should say, that I've been playing with. because one of them I've chosen a pattern, the other one I have not. I have this beautiful yarn, this pink yarn from Sonder Yarns. This is the Sunday Morning DK. And this is the colorway Sunday Kind of Love. And I had originally bought this to make a DRK Everyday Sweater by Andrea Mowry. But then I ended up with this, and I have a sweater quantity of this. I ended up with this one skein of this because I was going to use these together for another sweater. I can't remember what it was called, that had baubles all over it. And I've given up on that one. And then I ended up with a black ball or skein of the Sonder. So this is Mani Pedi. And this one, oh, I can't remember what this one was called. Matinee, it was called. And I was like, this is actually a rather beautiful color combination. So I am going to be making the Late Bloomer by Heidi Kiermaier. I'll put a picture of the pattern here. As you can see, it's really soft and pretty. My main color is going to be this pink. My flowers are going to be black. So it's going to be quite dramatic. And then the little details between the flowers will be in this orchid. So it's going to be a very different kind of sweater and color combination for me, actually. And I'm really excited about it. I had some different options and I realized I think the black dramatic flowers would just be absolutely fabulous. So I'm really excited. And I'm really loving this color, but I do think that a sweater quantity, well, they're both great. What can I say? I did kind of think, oh, this with the black flowers, but I'm going to go with what I have because I think it's going to be gorgeous. I hope. So once I've got the Stockholm sweater going, I will be starting this one. And then the other yarn that got pulled out and that I started playing around with is this beautiful yarn from Dark Omen Yarns. I had gotten this at Barcelona Knits, and my intention for this was to make the Ilya by Orlan Suk. I'll put a picture of it there. Now that sweater is made on a heavy fingering sport weight. That's the intention for that sweater. This yarn is called a sport weight, but I must say that it really knits up more like a DK light worsted, even a worsted. It is a very, very fluffy yarn. I think that it was milled. A few episodes ago, I made the Violetta sweater by Claudia Quintanilla in Lamina Como. And that yarn is kind of a woolen spun yarn. It's got an interesting, it's like a woolen spun plied yarn. And I feel, and it was milled in Italy, and this is milled in Italy as well. I'm assuming because it's an Italian yarn. This is the colorway Belleth. But this looks like it's got a similar thing where there's some woolen spunness to it. So it's very airy and very light. There are 300 meters per 100 grams. So one would think that that was sport weight. But it is knitting up on 4.5 millimeter needles. Very, like with an 18 stitch gauge, basically. So the gauge, it's not that the gauge is an issue. I could modify the Ilya, but I actually like the Ilya with the lighter yarns. So this is not going to become an Ilya. So I am just swatching and hoping that the sweater speaks to me. I have some ideas. I could turn it into a DRK sweater, and this would become the DRK sweater, which is quite a lovely idea. I think this would look beautiful with cables because it would pop nicely. So anyway, it's back to the drawing board with this one. And, but it's got a beautiful feeling. This is a 85% merino and 15% yak. And yak just gives such an interesting texture to yarn. It gives a bit of a cottony sort of feel. I want to call it dusty, but I don't know that that's really a proper term. But yeah, it's just beautiful. Just a beautiful, and with the yak, it's got a little bit of the dark going through it. It's really lovely. So this right now is not really becoming anything, but I am thinking about it. And I think that it could become a DRK sweater, and that would fulfill that need, because I did make the DRK sweater in this yarn. I'll show you the picture there. You may recall from from the fall. And that's just been really disappointing. The sweater fits beautifully. I love it. It's gorgeous, but the yarn pills to no end. And it just doesn't look very nice at all. And I could just wear it at home, but I've got lots of sweaters that I can wear at home. I've got lots of sweaters that can fulfill that coziness. So it's really, really disappointing. I certainly don't want to wear it out into the world, because it's really really doesn't look good. In addition to, the color having bled, it's the pilling that's really the main issue. So this could become a nice DRK everyday sweater and fulfill that need for that sweater. We'll see. So that is all of the knitting content. I have one bit of acquisition that I want to show you. Espace Tricot was having a sale on La Bien-Aimée yarns. I've never bought La Bien-Aimée yarns. They are very, very pricey generally. And although I am fine with spending money on yarn, I found them to be really, really pricey. But there are a couple of yarns that I've been wanting to try of La Bien-Aimée, one of them being the Corey worsted and another one being the Helix. So when I saw that Espace Tricot was having a 30% sale on La Bien-Aimée yarns, I was like, I better go look. And I ended up coming away. This was online and there wasn't a lot left, but I ended up buying 6 skeins of the Corey worsted. There weren't any colors in the Helix that were really speaking to me, but there were these beautiful colors from the Corey worsted. So I thought, without seeing them in real life, I thought, I can do something with that. I can make something with that. So I ended up buying 3 skeins of this one, which is a lichen. This is the lichen colorway, which is just this really beautiful gray-green. And one of this crazy coco, it's called. This very bright color, which would be a lovely accent. And this one, which is bone. And I know that there isn't a huge amount of contrast, but I'm kind of liking that. And mist. So I have 2 patterns in mind for this. One is the Soldotna by Caitlin Hunter, which is a sweater that's been made by gazillions of people. And it's really beautiful. So that's one that I've thought of. And the other one is the Esther by Camilla Bat. And that's the one that I'm kind of leaning towards. We'll see. But this will end up being a slipover because there isn't probably enough of this one here as a main yarn to become a sweater. But both of them are kind of slipover type things, and I thought some nice color work could be lovely. So yeah, so that is my purchase of the month. I've decided that I won't be buying any more sweater quantities, at least until May when I go to Knit City, Toronto. And Mecca and Mel and I have been organizing. We've got an Airbnb together. So I'll be going to Knit City, Toronto. Perhaps I'll see you there. It's still a couple of months away. You've got plenty of time to plan. All right, that is the end of the knitting content for the podcast. On to a couple of lovely things that are bringing me joy, that are good things. And I'll start with some podcast corner. I wanted to mention 2 podcasts today. One is the Herb Garden podcast with Hannah, and I'll be linking these below in case you want to check them out. Hannah is a knitwear designer and designs really lovely sweaters. And I was watching her recap from last year, and I was like, I want to make that one, and I'd like to make that one, and I'd like to make that one. She really does have lovely designs. So that is one podcast that I wanted to mention, and I believe she's in Germany. And I had a chance to meet her very briefly at Barcelona Knits. So yeah, she's one whose podcast is new to me, and I just really enjoyed her quiet style, just her lovely knits, and her talking about her designs as well. And then the other one is a new podcast. I think she started perhaps in the fall or late summer. And this is a podcast called Inherskein. And she's actually, I'm realizing now I don't remember her first name, but she is from Canada, lived in Montreal before, but is now in Italy. And she just has a lovely aesthetic as well, and it's lovely to watch a fellow Canadian. So yeah, and also a quiet demeanor, and just using lovely yarns, natural yarns, and just has a lovely, lovely aesthetic. So those are 2 podcasts that I wanted to mention this time. I've seen a lot of movies lately. It's winter, and so I feel like I've been watching movies and catching up on movies, and also when award season comes out, it's nice to see like what's been nominated and so forth. So one movie that I saw that I really, really enjoyed a lot was Past Lives. Past Lives is a story about a Korean immigrant and unrequited love with a Korean boy who's remained in Korea. So she immigrates she comes to Canada first, and then eventually moves to New York, and they just reconnect, and they've both grown up, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful story about unrequited love and about immigration as well. And some of the things that happen with immigration, where you take on the identity of the new country, and you don't always totally relate to the old country anymore, and just a lot of really interesting things. It was a beautifully, beautifully made movie, really understated, and just a lovely story. And I really, really enjoyed that a lot. Another movie that I really enjoyed was a movie called American Fiction, which is the story about an African-American professor writer who is frustrated, and things are just not going well for him with his writing. And it's very much a commentary on the multiple layers of being a Black person in a society that is full of very complex history with Black people. And it was very funny, but very poignant at the same time. I think it made a lot of really interesting points. I thought it was just really great. And I thought, I'd actually like to see that again, because I thought that there were just so many interesting tidbits to it. It was very funny, really well put together movie. I really enjoyed that a lot. This week, I watched a movie that will stay with me for a while. I'm not sure that I would recommend it, only because it was so hard to watch. And this is a movie called The Society of the Snow. It's on Netflix, I believe. And it is based on a true story of a plane crash that happened in, I think it was 1972. It's a story about an Uruguayan flight that was leaving Montevideo going to Santiago de Chile, and it crashed in the Andes. And it is the story of the survival of the people who didn't die in the crash. And they were stuck in the middle of winter in the Andes, in the middle of the Andes, nothing around, for, I think it was something like 71 days. And it's about their survival. And it was a tough movie to watch, I have to say. It was very good. It was a really well told story. At one point, I did stop it and looked at my husband and said, I don't know if I can continue watching this. It's so hard. But we did end up watching it, and I'm glad we did. It was a very good story. It was a very well told story, and it was a really interesting story in the sense that it was so much about the collaboration between the people and how I'm not sure they would have survived if they hadn't worked together so well. It was just beautiful to watch, and to watch that aspect of it, even though what they had to go through was just incredibly difficult and amazing that they did it. And some of the people from that plane crash, one of them I think went on to become a politician. One of them was the son of a famous Uruguayan artist, which was why the search for them took a long time before they called off the search. But anyway, it's a very interesting story. Quite a triumph of the human spirit, I'd have to say. And then we also watched, hey, do you want to come say hi? Yoda's looking at me there. She's wondering if she wants to come say hi. Anyway, the other night we also watched just a sweet documentary on CBC Gems, which I don't know if this is a platform that you can access outside of Canada, but it's a lovely documentary about the Cowichan sweater. So the Cowichan sweater has Indigenous origins from the Salish people of the west coast of Canada. This girl is just wanting my attention. And it was just really a lovely story. A lovely story about the origins of Cowichan sweater, how sheep were brought in by the English, and how the Indigenous people started making yarn with the fleeces, and started knitting, and that was the beginning of the Cowichan sweater, which is famous. So it was just a lovely, lovely documentary with a young Indigenous woman interviewing the elders in the community about their experience with the Cowichan sweater and the knitting. And it was just also so collaborative and community oriented. It was just really beautiful to watch. Couple of books. I told you last time that I'm listening to Women Talking. I'm still listening to that. It's just lovely. I'm really enjoying it. But one of my challenges for February was to read every day. And so I have been reading through this book called Navigating the Messy Middle, which is a fiercely honest and wildly encouraging guide for midlife women. It's by Anne Douglas, who is an Ontario writer, I believe. And a friend said, hey, I'm reading this book and really enjoying it, and I think a bunch of women should get together and talk about this. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So we're getting together about once a month. The book is divided in 3 parts. The first part is about the mind, the second part is about the body, and the third part is about the spirit. And we've gotten to about the soul, rather. And we've gotten together and talked about the first 2 parts. And it's really talking about what is midlife and when does it start, and just the different aspects of it. Lots of interviews with people. It's an easy read, and I wouldn't say it's the most exciting book, or it's certainly not the most exciting book, but it's a really great conversation launcher, I think. And we've had lots of really, really interesting conversations about being in midlife. So that has been interesting. My friend Kate of the Hawthorne Cottage Craft gave me this book called The Long Song by Andrea Levy. I read The Small Island by Andrea Levy last year, and it was such a good book. I loved that book. And I'm really enjoying reading this one as well. Andrea Levy was a of Jamaican heritage, but I believe she lived in England. She died in 2019. And her books are really about Jamaica. So the other book, Small Island, was about Jamaican immigrants in England during the Second World War. And this one is really about slavery in Jamaica, and I believe it sort of it's about slavery and then the freedom from slavery and what comes out. I'm not very far into it, so I can't say a whole lot about it, except that I really enjoy her writing. Her writing is just really lovely, and I'm enjoying reading a little bit every day. And then the other book that I've been reading a little bit of every day, and literally just a little bit because I just got the book, is this book here by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And I had seen it pop up here and there. It just came out in 2023. And it's just little writings on different aspects of creativity. It's really beautiful. And there's a quote at the very beginning by Robert Henry. The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. And I think that as somebody for whom a creative life is really important, I'm just enjoying reading the little snippets. And the first snippet, I was like, well, I mean, I've been saying this every day. The first snippet is called Everyone is a Creator. And I just love that he was sort of speaking very much to my feelings about the fact that we're all creative. Creativity is a part of being human. We just express it in very different ways. And, some people are creative in art, but others are creative in their cooking. Others are creative in their engineering, or in the way they solve problems, or the way they view the environment, or there's so many in their gardening. There's just so many ways to be creative, and it doesn't always have to be in the form of something beautiful or artistic or so forth. So I just think this is going to be just an interesting piece to read. So I just read a little snippet every day, and I'm really enjoying that. So, yeah, that's what I've been up to. Lots of movie watching, haven't been out a lot. I've got a teeny weeny little bit of footage for you at the end. It's been a very sort of inside time, I have to say. I haven't been walking as much as usual, but I'm hoping that I will start getting out a little bit more. My challenges for February, as I said, were to finish some old projects or some languishing projects and to read every day. March is going to be very practical. One of my, I've already decided this, one of my challenges is going to be to floss every day. I just really want that challenge to get that to be a better habit in my life. And then the other challenge is going to do some form of exercise every day. I really like this one person on YouTube. Her name is Paula B. I'll put her name down here. It's P-A-H-L-A. And she does these very short workouts that are really for middle-aged people. They're sort of low impact, but they're just a great way to do 20 minutes of movement every day. And I've done, like the yoga for Adrienne with her 30-day challenges, I've done the Paula's challenges in the past, and I really enjoy. She does some with weights, some without weights. So I am thinking about doing a month of Paula B. And if it's not a month of Paula B, then it'll be a month of some sort of physical activity every day. Because I seem to be falling out of a habit of going for walks every single day, doing something every single day, and I want to get that back into my life. So March is going to be a little bit more practical that way. I'm really enjoying these monthly challenges. I think they're just really great to get habits in. I'm really enjoying reading. I find that although I did buy that one bit of yarn, La Bien-Aimée yarn, I'm finding that I'm definitely spending less money, even though that was a January challenge. It seems to have sort of bled into February. And I'm also hoping that the reading will continue. I'm hoping to also continue finishing up projects. So they become like these nice habits that that one does. So yeah. Anyway, that's all for me this time. I hope that this podcast has found you well. February, I hope, has been a decent month for you. If you enjoy winter sports, hopefully you've had good weather where you are. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I hope you've gotten some lovely heat. It's been a weird winter here. Very, very strange weather. Like one day it's -15 and the next day it's +5. It's just bizarre. So anyway, it is what it is. I have been enjoying my knitting and watching movies and reading, and it's just been really, really nice. So take care. We'll see you next time.
Like cold November rain, like a man without a name, like a song without a refrain. That's how I feel without you. Like a door without a key, like a wave without the sea, like a hive without the bees. That's how I feel without you. But oh, how I miss being with you. And oh, how I wish it wasn't true. And oh, how I wish you missed me too. But I know there's nothing I can do, nothing I can do. Like cold November rain, like a man without a name, like a song without a refrain. I don't know how else